How about sharing your faith to any degree with probationers?
That happens a lot more than actually coworkers, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people are in situations or events in their lives that are great struggles for them.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect segue where I see Jesus spending most of his time with those people that are poor and downtrodden and needy and struggling big time. And so I've had many situations where I will just begin to say, well, have you thought about God in this situation? Or maybe God doesn't look at it like that. And maybe if you look to him, you might be able to see things a little bit differently than the way that you're looking at things now. And so it'll open up doors. People will start to wonder, wow, God, what's, I've had people say, I'm an atheist. And I said, well, with God, there isn't really any atheists. So I created a door, and this was a juvenile at one point.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what makes you so angry at God? I said, is it really because you're angry at God? And that's what he eventually said, yeah. And so he was so angry at God that he didn't want to believe in him because his parents had done him bad.
Yeah.
And so it opened up a door for me to share what God was about and how God really tries to take care of his people, even though you have to go through these struggles. Because I said it's not him that creates that scenario. That's one situation where the enemy, his parents let the enemy use them, and it caused grief in his life.
Yeah.
And so I was able to point all that out. And the strange thing about it, that kid, after I was done with him, he came back. A lot of people don't, but he came back and said, I just want to thank you.
Wow, that's excellent.
And I asked him about his trusting in God, and he said, yeah, I'm starting to pray and I want to go to church now.
Yeah,
so
that's excellent. Wow.
I look at that as the true evangelism that God sets up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, that's a great response of what happened, but like Dave would know, that doesn't happen every time.
Yeah.
Every time we share the gospel, every time we pray for people or lead people to Christ, it's not necessarily that we're going to see a result or hear a result. But God is calling us to be laborers. He's telling us to plant seeds and water the seeds, and he will bring the increase, Dave, the next one is, this one I found it's hard for us as believers to do sometimes, and it's giving the full gospel. God is holy. We are not holy. Our sin disqualifies us from being right with God. We were all Christians were on their way to hell. Non-believers are on their way to hell. The only way to be forgiven is through Jesus' shedded blood. And then when you believe that, you're born again and you're bought by his blood, meaning you belong to him now. Have you found that you've been able to give that full message to people, or do you feel like for you it's like pieces of it?
Yeah, it's really been more pieces of it.
Yeah.
More so, like I said, the testimony I gave when my child died, and people were asking where your faith is. I gave a pretty good, basically the gospel to them.
Yeah.
And what Christ was about.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're given bits and pieces, because if you look at Jesus and how he responded to people, even on the cross, he's got a thief next to him. And he doesn't give them this set standard response. But he does notice that this guy is humble and of contrite heart.
No.
And so he says to him, you will be with me in paradise today.
The other thief on the cross.
Right. And so he didn't lay out a regimented response, but he looked at the condition of the heart, because the heart is the issue that God is looking at. And we're to be praying, I believe, that about these people around us, to know the condition of their heart, so we can know what to say when.
Yes.
Where their heart is at in terms of how Christ wants us to respond.
And to add on to the thief, I believe he already knew that he was getting what he deserved. And so that shows right there. He wasn't like, oh, well, I don't deserve to be here. He said, no, this is, this is what, I'm getting what I deserve basically being here. But Jesus has no, there's really, he shouldn't even be here, And I think being able, like, Dave said, basically being able to discern where people are. And if somebody is already, they know that they failed God, they're an enemy of God, that person now can receive Jesus dying on the cross, and he rose from the dead and he died for their sins. Now, if there's a person who's very prideful or arrogant, well, I'm a good person, I do things, I don't need God. Now, that's that person that we could possibly use the law to show them, look, you're not as good as you think you are. Dave, what advice would you give a person who they're struggling to share their faith for one point or another? Say you got Bobby, he goes to work, he's a Christian, he's just not confident that people will listen to him. Why should he share his faith?
I think a lot of people aren't confident themselves in their own relationship with God.
It's true.
Because you can't give out what you don't have.
Yes.
And if you have a good relationship with the Lord and you trust Him, and even though you got struggles like everybody else, as I was saying, I believe people will share out of what is in their heart.
Yeah.
Because that's what Jesus said, out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth will speak.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have confidence in how God has worked in your own life, you can't convey that to others.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people fall or fall short.
Yeah.
Because they haven't secured the confidence in their own walk with the King.
Yeah.
And so they're trepid and intimidated about sharing the story that God has done in their own life.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think people need confidence. Because once you get that confidence, then, and you see what God has done in your own life in many different ways, then you want to share that. Because even in the Old Testament, He always told Israel, just tell the world around them what He had done. When Jesus shared or healed somebody, what did He go do? You go back and you tell the people that you're with what God has done for you. Go make the sacrifice. Tell the people around you what God has done to you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Is that I think that's where people
I agree.
struggle so much with evangelizing and sharing with the Lord.
Yeah. That's a good point, and I think it's examining your heart. Another thing is too, I like to say is you being grateful. That man, again, you were once a non-believer. You were once on your way to hell, and you were an enemy of God. But yet God loved you so much, He died for your sin. Going back to the gospel message, I think it rejuvenates you. It encourages you. It's like a launching pad also, not just for your initial salvation, but I think the gospel message, to keep it close to your heart, keep it close to your mind, because now that'll encourage you to want to share the same very gospel. And guys, we thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you, Dave, for being here.
Yep.
All right, God bless.